Ladies and gentlemen, we're expecting some moderate turbulence.
Please remain seated and enjoy the show. Hello.
And welcome to
Moderate Turbulence.
I'm Jeremy.
I'm Adele.
Hello, Adele. How are you?
Good, Jeremy. How are you?
I'm good. It's been a few weeks, but we're back and we've got lots to talk about today, don't we?
Definitely.
What are we going to talk about today?
Well, first, we went on a nice vacation, so... Well, sorry for being away for a bit, but sometimes you need to go on vacation.
We had to take our vacation too. So, I've been off for almost a month now, which is kind of nice. And we went on a vacation. We're going to tell you all about it. And Adele's going to talk a little bit now about direction of the podcast, if that makes sense.
We just wanted to add some travel content more to the podcast as well. So this is kind of going to be one of the first installments of this kind of content. We're going to talk about our vacation, what we did, but just kind of like, tips and tricks. We're going to compare things. Obviously, we travel for work, but then we do travel leisurely as well. So a little taste of different type of content, and definitely let us know if that interests you. What do you think? Suggestions of what we could add on to different episodes coming up. And we can also probably add some like horror stories from traveling and stuff in the future. So you definitely let us know those if you want to share your horror stories or anything. So
All right. Well, let's get into it. So before we get into the content, we're going to talk about our highs and lows from our vacation. So highs and lows. You want to take it away?
Well, I just talked. You talk now.
Okay. So highs and lows. High for me for our vacation was just getting away and not having to think about work, not having to think about things like that, just being on vacation, experiencing a bunch of new cultures. We'll talk about that a little bit coming up. And just being on vacation, relaxation, getting a bit of a tan, lying in the sun, reading a lot, things like that. How about you?
I mean, that was very vague, Jeremy.
You want a specific high?
But whatever. That's fine. I will say that my high was being in Panama. I don't think we said what we did for our vacation.
We haven't said it yet because we're going to get into that as we describe our vacation in epic detail.
So we were, for part of it, in Panama. We saw the canal, or part of the canal. Did some kayaking in Panama. Saw a sloth in Panama.
A wild sloth. We saw a couple other not wild sloths and some other non-wild creatures, but we did see a wild sloth in Panama, which is cool.
Yeah. So, and I'd never been to Panama, didn't really know what to expect, honestly. And it just looked absolutely beautiful as soon as we woke up that morning. Everything was lush and green and just like jungle all around. And it's just, wow.
Yeah, it was really cool.
It's so cool. Definitely want to go back and explore more because it just gave us a really nice impression.
Definitely. Okay, so for my low, now I'm going to give away what we did for our vacation. We were on a cruise. Now, one of the unfortunate things on a cruise is if the waters aren't cooperating when you get to one of your ports. We were supposed to stop in Grand Cayman, and the waters were really rough. And it's a port where you tender, meaning the boat parks way offshore, and then you have a boat that takes you to the mainland.
A much smaller boat.
The island, I should say, for Grand Cayman. And because the seas were so rough, we were not able to safely get on a tender to go ashore. So they canceled that port of call. And instead of that, we ended up starting our cruise with 3 days at sea. And missing Grand Cayman would have been my low.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, just because we had different stops planned and I had never been to Grand Cayman, so another new place to explore. The pictures that I had seen looked really fun, lots of color, new culture, new food to try. So, and I was just like, we'll talk about the cruise as well, but like the first day of cruising was rough. So I was really looking forward to stepping on land and having that normalcy. Yeah. And when that didn't happen, it was just really disappointing. For so many reasons. So yeah, that was, and since it's only my second cruise, I really didn't know that was a possibility. Like I just wasn't a cruise connoisseur, if you will. Like I just like, it didn't even cross my mind that that was a possibility. So I think that was also why I was so shocked. I was just like, what?
Wait, what? We're not stopping? Yeah, it was
like we're not, like we didn't even stop at all. We just kept going.
Right through,
so we don't even see it from the windows at all. It was just like, yeah, we're just not going. No other ports are getting visited either. We're not adding a stop. It's just, we're just cruising.
Just missing that one.
We're just keeping on going. So yeah, that was shocking to me. A new thing. And, you know, being in a travel industry, we're annoyed, mad, angry, disappointed. But then you kind of have to be like, well, it's the safety of everyone involved.
Yeah.
Safety first for everything. We talk about it whenever we talk about safety in flight and our procedures and everything. So it's like, as much as I want to, you know, be annoyed about it, it's like, well, what are we supposed to do? Fly to the island first, on our jetpacks? Of course not. Like it's not possible. Just take the
helicopter. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was impossible. It's not going to happen. So, you know, be disappointed for a little bit and then hope to be able to visit Grand Cayman another time.
Yeah. Did you have another low, or was that yours as well?
That was it. But we'll talk about the whole cruise as we go on. Like that was the biggest low.
Yeah.
Just because it's like a day that we just kind of,
we were looking forward to, and it didn't end up happening, of course. So. Yeah. Okay, so to give you a little insight, so this was our second cruise together, your second cruise ever. I had been on a few cruises previously, so I think this was, I calculated, it was either my 9th or my 10th cruise altogether. So we're going to talk about that coming up a little bit in this video / podcast. So right now we'll give you some info on our specific cruise. Now we booked, because we work for an airline, we were able to book through like one of the airline affiliated sites. We get what's called interline rates, and it's basically like if you work for a hotel, you get good deals for hotels. If you work for an airline, you get different deals like that. So we booked our cruise. We ended up going on the Norwegian Gem, which is one of the jewel class cruise ships for Norwegian Cruise Line. My first time ever going with Norwegian, your first time as well. The last cruise we did together was on Princess. We'll give a little comparison a little bit later. Big cruise ship, 2,500 or so passengers, 1,200 or so crew members. Those are general numbers. And big boat, lots of people.
Full, completely sold out. Full. So that was also an experience. So I mean, let's talk about the cruise. Of course, we're on Norwegian. We left from Miami. 11 days we were gone, so that was also very exciting. You know,
longest cruise I've ever been on. Almost 2 weeks on a ship. Yeah, it was kind of cool.
And just being away for that amount of time. Of course, we're leaving from Miami, then going down south. So a nice hot vacation as well, exploring different areas. And yeah, so the first one, of course, as we mentioned, was supposed to be Grand Cayman, did not happen. So we ended up not going there. 3 days at sea. But of course, you're not on a passenger boat that's just, you know, a seat, obviously. You know, if you've ever done a cruise, you know, but if you have literally no idea what a cruise ship is, it's a giant resort that floats on water. That's the simplest way you can describe it. So you have a lot to do there's lots of restaurants, lots of bars, there's pools.
Casino, there's hot tubs, there's even a spa, which we're going to talk about as well.
Yeah, there's climbing wall. I think there was there's ping pong tables, there's a library, there's a games room, there's of course a gym, fitness center. I mean, there's your cabin, your stateroom, so you can just, you know, chill there if you want to. There's so many things. There's a theater as well that they put on big performances and shows throughout the cruise. So there's lots to do. So of course, we're not just twiddling our thumbs. We found things to do. We played a lot of Monopoly Deal throughout the cruise. That's our game that we like to play together. Mm-hmm. We read a lot. We lounged by the pool. We just, you know, explored the ship. Partook in some of the activities when it interested us. Yeah. We did not do any bingo.
No, we were there when they were selling the cards and they tried to get us to play, but no. We played some trivia. Yeah, we had some fun. Yeah. So going over a few of the things. So when we booked our cruise with Norwegian, again, we booked through a third party. And we got what's called the free at sea package. Now, the free at sea package with Norwegian is going to include a few extra elements. It includes all of your drinks. So it made it kind of like an all-inclusive. All of our alcoholic beverages were covered as long as the price did not exceed $15. It also included a little bit of Wi-Fi. Now, again, Wi-Fi at sea is not super amazing. And we had 150 minutes each to use. I didn't even use mine. I ended up with like 40 something minutes still left at the very end that I hadn't even used, because we would go on for a couple minutes here and there, message back home, find out, make sure everything's okay with the cats, because we did have a good friend of ours who was looking after the cats while Roxy was actually in Montreal with Adele's mom, and they were taking care of Roxy there, and she loved it. So we had the free at sea package, some Wi-Fi. We also had one night of specialty dining included, which we'll talk about, and $50 off our shore excursions for one of us. So if we were doing any excursions, we would get a $50 discount, basically.
So that described part of like the Norwegian thing. Also, if you've been on a cruise before, you might have been familiar with booking or pre-reserving your seating for dinner. Mm-hmm. So like, I think that's exactly what we did for Princess. We decided, or we're going to eat at 7 p.m. I don't know what it was, but whatever.
Yeah. It's
every
usually,
night.
Yeah, you'll have the early seating and the late seating. You either seat early for dinner or late for dinner. And then they would sort of offset it with the big show that was going on. They'd have the early show and the late show. So if you eat the early dinner, you go to the late show. If you go to the late dinner, you go to the early show. And it just made sense. But again, like you were saying with Norwegian,
they don't have that. You can just go whenever you want. I mean, you can always still reserve, but we didn't. We never did. And it was fine. Even with an oversold, like there's lots of options. There's lots of restaurants and stuff. There's the two big main dining rooms for sit down meals.
And it's like a proper restaurant. Like you get your menu, servers come and take your orders.
It's beautiful.
And the food's usually quite good.
Yeah, and we never had issues. A couple times only we had to wait. They told us maybe 15 to 20 minutes, which totally fine.
Oh, yeah. Completely.
And being a ship where everything is included already, while we went 10 meters away from that restaurant, had a drink at the bar, played some Monopoly Deal, or listened to some live music that was happening right there. Mm-hmm. And then our buzzers would buzz and we would go and sit and have some food. So it's just like, no chill, no, all chill.
Yeah, it
no
was
issues,
chill.
all chill.
And again, like we're polite people, I like to think, and so we're very polite with the maitre d' and everybody at the restaurant. And the maitre d' ended up recognizing us after about like 3 or 4 days. And so we would walk up and he'd be like, "Oh, cabin so-and-so." And we're like, "Yep." And he'd be like, "Right this way." And just a fun little fact, on the very last night we went out for dinner and there was a couple ahead of us and they said, table for two. And the maitre d' said, "Yeah, like we can get you in. It's going to be about a 20-minute wait right now. It's quite busy." And then they said, "Okay, perfect." And then they walked away and then we were next and we're like, table for two. Like we're good waiting. We'll just head over to the bar and grab a drink. And he was like, No. You guys are my guests right this way." And we're like, "Oh, VIP treatment." And I think that was literally because we were just very polite with them, interacted with the maitre d' and then the head sort of hostess quite a bit, like over the 11 days we were there. And it pays to be polite. And like I always say, it costs nothing to be polite. And I think we were rewarded for that.
Yeah. And also my other theory was that we were noticeable because, again, a fact of a cruise is it's an older clientele. So we are not in our 80s. So we are very noticeable. So there's obviously, I would say at least 60% of the guests were over 65.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
And then there was, of course, a few younger couples like us. And maybe I would say 2 families with kids.
Yeah, we saw, it was very seldom that we would see any kids. There may have been more, we just never saw them.
Yeah, like young kids. Like there was a few teenagers here and there, but like young kids that were maybe 5 or younger, there was 2 and then there was a baby. Yeah. Other than that, it was all older people. So I feel like because of that, we were noticeable. So it's easy to be like, "Oh yeah, that young couple from this stateroom." Like, I mean, we were being nice to them as well, but like, we were recognizable.
Yeah, we stuck out for sure.
So let's talk about our destination. So the first actual port that we were able to get to was Cartagena, Colombia. We booked an excursion because it's Colombia. We'd both never been there. We didn't want to just kind of wander around because we didn't know the place. We wanted to actually see things. So that's what we booked an excursion to just see different parts of the city. And that was
some culture. Yeah.
Yeah. I think perfect for our first time there, honestly. We went on a bus with a lot of other people on the ship. So that's kind of like one of the things that I would talk about later. We're going to talk about other like pros and cons overall of like cruising. But the excursion was very busy. Just kind of herding people on and off buses throughout the day. But we had moments to like kind of explore by ourselves as well. And we saw like very short amounts of time in different places. But we saw like the main fortress or like castle. We saw the dungeons. We saw like a naval museum. We saw like the old town where like it's kind of like what you see when you Google images of Cartagena with all the colorful buildings and stuff is like the old town. And got some information like emeralds. I didn't really know that Colombia was known for emeralds. So that's something that over 60%, I learned.
Over 60% of the world's top emeralds come from Colombia.
Yeah. So, and of course they like tried to sell us lots of emeralds.
Oh
but
my goodness. Yes. Constantly.
I wish I could afford that. That is not something that was in my cruising budget for this trip.
Perfect.
Next was Panama.
So Panama, we literally woke up to announcements because it was really earlier in the morning when we started going through the canal. Like
6:30 a.m.
Yeah. So we weren't going to the Pacific side, but you do still go through the Atlantic side of the canal to get sort of to where we were going in Gatun Lake. And then we ended up going off on our excursion where we tendered, I guess, because we didn't pull up to a dock. So we tendered on one of the cruise's boats, went to the mainland, went to our excursion where we did a couple really neat things. But the highlight, I think, was kayaking in Gatun Lake. And then seeing
where we saw the sloth and stuff. And it was just, we got rained on, but it's so humid that it was really nice.
It was refreshing, yeah. You went for a little swim at the end as well.
In the lake.
It was really neat. But I still think that, the highlights were kayaking. And then when we were actually going through the locks of the canal and then learning, about the old lock system and the new lock system, because they started building new locks back in the early 2000s. And we got to see them both, but we only went through one of them. But we saw the Panama Canal.
Yeah. And we stopped, we did part of the tour was stopping at the Agua Clara locks, which is part of some of the new locks. Like there's a lot of different parts of the canal. It's not just like one passage. There's a lot of different parts, which is of course something I didn't know. I've never really researched the Panama Canal either. So it was really, you hear about it a lot. It's one of those things like, oh, will I ever see that one day? Didn't think I was ever gonna. So that was really cool. Definitely a bucket list thing to have done and experienced. We took a lot of pictures. We saw some boats go through parts of that Agua Clara, and then just driving around that area, just so lush, so
oh my God, it's
green,
so beautiful,
a little mountainous. I would definitely go back and explore. It's just so nice. Very, very humid. So it was the first 3 days of the cruise of exploring outside of the boat was Colombia, Panama, and then moving on to Costa Rica.
Yeah. So of course
just so humid.
They all share borders. So Colombia borders Panama, which then borders Costa Rica. So we're just kind of working our way along. Costa Rica again, beautiful, very mountainous. I have nothing bad to say about Costa Rica. It was a beautiful spot.
We didn't see much on that because we didn't do an excursion in Costa Rica.
We just kind of went around on our own.
Yeah, we just walked around the little town, which was Puerto Limon. We went to the grocery store, had some iced coffee, and got some hot sauces and stuff there. And which I think I opened one of them. It was very tasty. It's like a Caribbean style, very delicious hot sauce from Costa Rica. And they lots of sloth souvenirs
Oh,
that you can
God,
get
yeah.
in Costa Rica, because that's kind of their main thing that they're known for, even though like we saw a lot in Panama and Colombia,
Colombia, yeah.
actually. Well, a lot. We saw some, but then we didn't do an excursion to see them in Costa Rica, but that's clearly where the sloths are.
We also saw some wild howler monkeys in Panama. We pulled over because the driver had spotted them, so we pulled over and a few people got some pictures of the howler monkeys, and then they revved one of the engines because it triggered the howler monkeys to start doing their like grunting, which was kind of interesting.
Well, they're howling.
Yeah.
They're grunting. They're howling. And then after that,
We had a day at sea.
Yeah.
And then we were continuing up sort of the Central American, east coast of Central America on the Gulf side. And then our next stop was in Belize. Now we say in Belize, but it's actually a place called Harvest Cay. Harvest Cay is kind of like an island that's owned by, I believe, multiple of the cruise lines. And it's just basically a little island that's all tourist stuff. They have chairs set out for like if you want to go to the beach. You can rent lots of wave runners, paddle boards, things like that. And it's just basically all geared to tourism. Lots of expensive restaurants. And we had asked on the ship beforehand, like, because at this point we needed to bid for our schedules for March. So we're like, we just need Wi-Fi to go sit down with our iPads and bid for our schedules. And they're like, yeah, of course. Like, just grab Wi-Fi at one of the restaurants. We get onto the island, and the island says there is no Wi-Fi for people on this island. The only Wi-Fi exists for people that are working there. We're like,
yeah.
Well, that doesn't help us.
So thankfully there was a possibility to take a ferry to the mainland, so a peninsula called Placencia Village. So we booked that. 45 minutes later, we were on that ferry and headed to Placencia, which is I'm really glad we ended up having to do that, because we then ended up having to step foot onto actual Belize, which, if I had just been to Harvest Cay, I could say I've been to Belize, but like not really.
It's like Belize adjacent.
Yeah, because it's a private island and it's just like gift shops and restaurants and like tourist things. Like there's nothing that's actually like Belize there. And then you step onto the mainland and it's just like a beautiful, like beachy surfer town. It's so cute. Like lots of pathways, lots of little shops, lots of little
hotels
ocean
and
rentals.
It was really cute. Like we both were like, we would come back here in a heartbeat and spend a week here, and like it was so nice for that.
So cute. So we found a place called the Tipsy Tuna, and it happened to be Mardi Gras, so everything was like decorated for Mardi Gras. Everyone
had
was
the beads and stuff. Yeah,
it's okay. So we grabbed Wi-Fi there. Thankfully, it was pretty decent Wi-Fi, so we were able to log on to our sites for our bid for our schedules, and have some food, some drinks, and just enjoy the ocean, because it was
Literally,
oceanfront.
like right there. Yeah, the Gulf was like we felt the breeze coming in from the water. It was great.
Yeah, so that was nice. And then we went to a grocery store as well in Belize, because we were told by one of the ferry tour people that if we like hot sauces, we should check out this specific brand of hot sauce that is made in Belize.
And guess what? We're obsessed with hot sauces, so we went.
Yeah, if you didn't know.
Yeah.
So we got a couple of those, and then we just kind of wandered around until the time that we had to take the ferry back to Harvest Cay.
Yeah, and then back on the ship we went. Then the next day, our next port was in Mexico. What was the town called?
Costa Maya,
which we found out is like just on the Belize border. So it's like you cross from Belize into Mexico, and Costa Maya is like pretty much right there. Again, not a big town, just a small town that literally is there for catering to people who are stopping in for a cruise. And when we docked there was a gigantic Royal Caribbean ship beside us, and then a gigantic Princess ship just sort of adjacent to us as well. So there was 3 huge cruise ships all docked at the same time, and those ones were bigger than ours. So they probably had 3,500 to somewhere up in the 4,000s for passengers. And so these 3 big cruise ships, all the passengers empty. And then they have this little area, again, same as like Harvest Cay, where it's an island that's just catered to passengers. This was like a little area. It's not an island, but it's an enclosed area. All the restaurants, they had little shows going on. And it's very like tourist trappy. At least I felt like I felt trapped in there. I was like, I need to get out of here. I need to go like just out of this tourist area. We need to find somewhere that isn't a tourist trap.
Yeah, which is what we did again. We just wandered outside of that like specific cruise port area.
About 50 people asked us if we needed a cab. We're like, no, thank you. We're good.
Yeah. We walked maybe 5 minutes to a restaurant that you had seen on Google and had a lovely, I guess, lunch.
Yeah, we had lunch there. We had lunch. We asked if they had Wi-Fi because we wanted to make sure our bids were all going through for work and stuff. And as soon as we walked in, there was 2 gorgeous dogs lying down there. And we're like, oh, finally, like, not finally, but like, interaction with pets again. We missed Roxy, that we'd been on the cruise for 10 days at this point. Yeah. And so these 2 beautiful dogs, one of them came up and you were petting it. And then we look over and then a third dog, a little chihuahua, pops up from one of the chairs. We're like, okay, this is our spot. Like, we'll stay here. And your goal in Mexico was to get proper guacamole. And we did.
Yeah, we got really good, like a huge, nice bowl of guacamole. I got some shrimp ceviche, and then you got some tacos.
I got some, delicious beef tacos. They really hit the spot. And then, of course, before we left that restaurant, one of I guess they had like a little Airbnb thing in behind, and one of the patrons there came in with 2 Pomeranians. So I was freaking out like, oh, Miss Roxy. But yeah, we got to see a couple Poms, which was cute.
Yeah, it was really nice. The owners or staff, we were able to chat with them. It was just, there was like maybe a couple other people there having lunch, but it was just like, we were away from the tourist area and it was nice. Yeah. Probably got some cheaper prices of what we paid for. Oh yeah. Had some dog pets and they were just like chilling. One was named Chai and one was named Leia.
And Chai was the mother, Leia was the daughter? Or
no, Leia's the mother.
Leia's the mother, Chai was the daughter, but they were gorgeous. And yeah.
Yeah. So that pretty much sums up the itinerary.
Yeah. Oh, so after Mexico, it was a full day at sea. And then we arrived back in Miami and then flew back to Montreal from there.
All right. Let's move on to pros and cons.
All right. Pros and cons. Take it away.
Well, we wrote down different lists of these. So should we go back and forth or should we just go all pros, all cons?
No, let's just go back and forth. And I mean, I don't have my list in front of me, but I have it up here. So let's start with pro. A pro from you.
I mean, the biggest pro, obviously, is you're in a resort. It's comfortable. You have pretty much all the amenities that you can think of. Like, even if you're in different countries, areas of the world during the day, you're always back on the ship.
Yeah.
You can be in your room. You can be at a bar, at a restaurant, at the pool. Like, it's comfortable. It's luxurious. It's nice. That's a big pro.
Free food 24 hours a day. There's a little bar. It's like an Irish pub almost. It's called O'Shea's on the ship. 24 hours it's open. You can go in and get chicken wings at 6 a.m. if you want. They actually had really good breakfast sandwiches. We went there a few days for breakfast. Drinks. We would go there after dinner, and sort of settle in there for the night, play some Monopoly Deal, fill our water bottles and have a beverage, whatever. And it was nice for that. So food nonstop, 24 hours a day.
Yeah. And just to know, the O'Shea's is a specific thing for Norwegian on some of their ships. So it's like, we're talking like general cruising, but like we might obviously mention specific things from the ship that we were just on for 12 days almost.
Yeah. Let's do a con. For me, a con was that not everybody on the cruise ship was as courteous as we were. And I mean, yes, we're courteous people. We wait in lineups. We'll, wait our turn. We say please. We say thank you. But some of the things we saw on the ship, like we saw one passenger yelling at the staff in the restaurant because they were like, it looks like somebody else was sitting here at the seat and they were like yelling at them. And we were at the next table and we're like, and the lady who she was like yelling at, we had already had a good rapport with her. So we kind of gave her a look like, sorry that people are like this to you. And then just generally people walking on the ship, it's not uncommon for people to walk in a line very slowly so that you can't walk by if you're trying to go at a quicker pace. And then they stop randomly and start talking and looking at things. It's like, have some awareness of your surroundings. There's other people around. very frustrating. And then little things like waiting in line for something, and then other people just sort of walk ahead of you and do their own thing, and they're like, whatever, I'm too important, I don't need to wait in lines. Like, common courtesy. It would be nice to see a lot more common courtesy.
Yeah, like that's definitely a big con. It's just like the people, not every person ever, you're traveling wherever you are at our jobs, we know.
Yeah.
People, not great. Not people will be nice, but some people are just make it really bad for others, you know? So yeah, that's just the thing. Of course, on a full, completely sold out cruise for 11 days, we saw it all.
Yep.
We had some experiences. Obviously, you have to go into that cruise thing knowing that like you're not going to be in your secluded little beach hut for 2 weeks by yourselves. That's not what cruising is.
Yep.
We definitely met some people and had some good chats with some people, but definitely just like the amount of just disregard and impoliteness overall was just like, whew, it gets to you sometimes. You're like, oh gosh, whoa, that person.
Yep.
So
we saw that a few times. Yeah. All right, let's go back to a pro.
I mean, you kind of already mentioned it, but just lots of food and drinks. You know, if you're at an all-inclusive resort in the South, wherever you're on a cruise, you have your food and drinks unlimited pretty much.
You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, you can eat as much as you want. You want 2 desserts? Perfect. You want to try that cocktail and then that other different cocktail? Perfect. You want to try a white wine and a red wine? Go ahead. You have just like everything at your fingertips. It's great. Just try it all. You're on vacation. Indulge. We definitely indulged a lot.
Yes. The Peloton's going to be getting a lot of action over the next little bit. That's for sure. Did you want me to do the next con?
Sure, unless you wanted to add a pro.
No, I mean,
okay.
You sort of covered it. Yeah. So con. Now, again, we work on airplanes. Sometimes you can hit turbulence. Well, guess what? The Caribbean Sea in the Gulf of Mexico can also get quite turbulent or rocky or rough or however you want to put it. Now, again, I've been on 9 or 10 cruises. I have never been on a cruise with as rough seas as we felt on this one. The first day, so we left Miami, then the next morning, I ended up waking up at around 5:30 in the morning. You were still sleeping a little bit, but the whole room was doing one of these. I'm like, oh, hello. I've never felt a cruise ship doing this before. Oh, and it was quite noticeable. First time in my entire cruising life where when we exited the room, as you got to the stairs, they actually had like vomit bags placed at all the different stairwells for the people who were not feeling the greatest.
Yeah, like my first cruise, I was like, oh, okay, so you barely feel the ship move. You can definitely like feel it a little bit as if you're like in a car or like on an airplane. You're feeling something's moving. You feel the engines or whatever. But overall, you don't feel like the ocean. You don't feel like the movement of the water. You don't feel that at all. Completely different experience this time. Day 1 at sea was the worst. I didn't get sick, but I didn't feel well. Yeah. I definitely got a headache. I didn't have an appetite. I was just like, oh, I need to get on land. Hence why not going on Grand Cayman was also really not fun because I really wanted to not feel that way anymore.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and almost the entire cruise, it was kind of rocky, not as bad as day 1, but you definitely felt the waves. You definitely felt the movement of the water.
Yep.
Most of the cruise walking around, if the boat was moving, it was difficult to walk around. Like you have to kind of like be careful, brace yourselves a little bit, hold on to the banister. You
couldn't walk in a straight line if you tried. It was like you were drunk walking. I mean, there's no real better way to put it. It was like, ooh, the line's moving, but you know, it is what it is, right?
Yeah. Definitely something I didn't expect either because, you know, you'd never experienced that before. Nope. So you didn't really know that how bad it could get because it's the Caribbean. You know, people cruise there all the time. Didn't know it was going to be that way.
Almost all of my cruises have been in the Caribbean. So yeah. And I'd never felt that before. So Yeah.
So good to know if you are seasick, like my mom. I would have maybe suggested a cruise prior to this, and now I'm like, ooh. But it's a risk I guess you have to take. It's there's sometimes turbulence in the air and sometimes there's not. So
and if you do get seasick, bring the right medication. A lot of people wear either like wrist things that are supposed to help. A lot of people you'll see have like a little patch, and that's like almost like a nicotine patch, but for anti-nausea medication. And then of course like Gravol. What's the other one? Bonine.
Yeah, that's the equivalent that they have in the States, I think.
Yeah. So, prepare yourself for it just in case.
Yeah.
Back to pros.
Yeah, I put down that the staff is great. I think both the cruises that we've been on together, just customer service is at like high level. Mm-hmm. You walk around any part of the ship, their staff, they will say good morning, good afternoon, good evening. You're not interacting with them. You're not like asking them for anything, but they will just greet you as you're walking by. And it's just like, it's very nice. We've had, like the maitre d' or manager, we're not exactly sure what his exact title was, but he was great. He recognized us. Like after 2-3 days, he knew our stateroom number. He knew us. He treated us really well.
And then the head hostess loved your name. So every time she'd see you, she'd be like, Adele, which is great. And then again, a big shout out to our favorite bar on the ship ended up being called Maltings. It's like the whiskey bar. And Alan, who sort of ran the whole whiskey bar and he was the bartender there, he was my guy. Every time I'd walk by, he'd start making like my usual drink. I mean, in 11 days, you get to know people there. So, old fashioned made with Crown Royal. It was delicious. I had a couple of those. So Alan and Noel, who was also working at that bar, shout out to them. I don't know if they're going to ever find this, but they really took care of us. They were super, super nice, so polite the whole time. And that sort of ended up being like our favorite spot to grab an alcoholic beverage.
Yeah. I mean, I don't drink old fashions, but whatever I wanted, I ended up having a lot of apple martinis just because I randomly wanted to have an apple martini. It ended up being my drink when I went to that bar, and it was nice, and it was just like a comfortable spot. They ended up knowing us. They ended up knowing us, and you met a few people there as well. Like if I went to bed early, like you would just hang out and meet some people and chat with them and stuff.
I made friends with one gentleman and found out that I had trained his daughter at our airline. Sort of a small world coincidence. And so that was fun, kind of finding that out.
Yeah, and then you ended up seeing him a lot throughout the rest of the cruise.
We chatted several nights, yeah, for sure. Cons. Next con is cruising is not cheap. It's not the cheapest way to get around, but it's one way where you can see multiple cities in one vacation, and it's already taken care of. So for us, we had 1, 2, 3, 4. We did 5 ports of call. We were supposed to do 6, but we were able to do that all in one vacation in 11 days. Not the cheapest way. And then, of course, we added the free at sea, depending on which cruise line you're using. Most cruise lines have some sort of drink package. Again, our experience on Princess was a little bit different because the third party that we booked it through had made a mistake. But most cruise lines, you can purchase a drink package. And it's not the cheapest way. When we priced it out, and we got a decent deal on our cruise, and it was comparable to doing like an all-inclusive for about a week. So we were like, oh, it's even longer, 11 days. Cool. But everything on a cruise is going to cost you more. When you start doing your excursions, they cost more. They do gratuities for all of the staff on the ship, and they just charge you a flat rate. And so that shows up on your statement every day. At Norwegian, it was $20 a day. So 11 days was an extra $220 US. And that's just another expense.
Per person.
So would you agree? Cruising's not the cheapest way, but it's a good way to see a lot of places.
Yeah, 100%. I have it on my con as well. You pay a flat rate. We booked our vacation. We paid up front. So that included our room, the cruise, so all the food, the free at sea, as you mentioned, which includes the Wi-Fi, the drinks, and the specialty restaurant for us. But then, it didn't include the gratuity, didn't include any shore excursions. We ended up getting the spa package, so we paid for that as well. So just like things that added up that I think we both calculated added up to an extra $1,000 each.
Yep, roughly.
At the end of the cruise, which we already paid for the cruise, and then that added up. Obviously, we could have done no excursions and then not done the spa, which would have only ended up being an extra $220 each. But then it's like, well, then you're not exploring at all. You're not seeing anything. And like, we both love a good sauna, steam room, whirlpool action. So that made sense for us, and it's a vacation. We're going to make sure our vacation is well spent.
We're going to splurge a little bit because we are on vacation. So going back to the pros, I guess. The next pro, can I take the next one?
Well, yeah.
The next pro, and especially this is the first time I've ever done this on a cruise, was we actually purchased the spa package. Now, what that gave us access to was the full spa area. They call it the Mandarin Spa on Norwegian cruise lines, or at least on our ship.
Mandara Spa.
Mandara Spa. Staff in the spa was excellent. We got a tour on it first day, and we actually entered a contest to try and win like money off because we knew we were going to get the spa package. But if you won this contest, like they did a draw, and if your name gets picked, we would have had $100, $200 off of our package. Now, we spent $259 US for the 11 days
each,
which isn't cheap. But if you compare it to, let's say, one of the Nordic spas that's not too far from where we live in the mountains, they charge anywhere from $80 to $100 for one day or one session. And so we had this unlimited for 11 days.
Yeah, exactly. Like we had no regret spending that. We weren't sure how busy it was going to be, so that was a bit of a risk. They said they do limit the amount of passes they do give out to people because they don't want it to be crowded, but it was never crowded. And especially the times that we would either go late afternoon or evening, or before or after supper.
Yeah.
And it got a bit crowded when we would go later afternoon, so like around 4. But by crowded, it would be like, instead of having like 2 people, there was maybe like 4 or 5 people.
Yeah.
Like in the bath and hot tubs areas. I think the entire time that I was there was never anyone with me in the sauna or the steam room when I would go there. You had a couple people once in the sauna. So it was just like a nice spot to relax. It was at the very front of the ship, so you had a very beautiful view. There was stone chairs, like hot stone chairs to lie on.
They had like a hot tub, and then like the thermal spa area, which was like a larger pool. They had these metal chairs that you could sit on in the pool, which I loved because you could just kind of lay back and relax. And then
just lots of jets everywhere, places to stand, just like the whole experience there. Like they had like nice water, oranges, teas that you can have there, robes that you can wear as you're going through the spa. Lockers that locked so we can bring like our belongings and lock it in safely. It was just a really nice experience and a good place. As we mentioned, there's a lot of people on a ship. That place was never crowded in our eyes, never ever. Especially we went a few times when it was just us.
Yeah. And like usually if we were there after dinner and we would stay, they would close around 10 p.m. and we would stay until like 9 something, and we would be like the last ones there. 9:45,
9:50.
We'd be the last ones there, and it was very relaxing. We sort of developed our routine. We would go to the hot tub, then we'd go to the thermal, then we'd go to in our own sort of change rooms. We had a sauna and a steam room, so we would go do that for a bit and just kind of sweat everything out because again, it's an all-inclusive. So we were partaking in some alcoholic beverages and things like that. So it was a way to...
lots more food than usual.
Lots of food. So it was kind of a way to kind of detox a little bit. And then we would go sit on the chairs staring at the front of the ship and read for a little bit before going back to our stateroom or out for dinner.
Yeah, exactly. You cover a lot of points there. My last pro, but it's also a con, is the Wi-Fi. The only reason it's a pro is just you get to disconnect.
Yeah.
You really get to disconnect. Both cruises that we've done, Princess, we only got it for like the last couple days. And then we used the Wi-Fi when we were
at port.
And then on Norwegian, the free at sea, you get 150 minutes. But the way they did it, it's a very good way to do it, is you log into the Wi-Fi when you actually want to use it fully. So you log in, check Instagram, whatever you need to do, check your email, send an email, and then you log out. So you use, I've used 5 minutes. Perfect. I still have 145 minutes for the rest of the trip. But what we discovered is that we just would get our notifications. So push notifications would come through. We both have iPhones. So I don't know if it works exactly the same way on Android, but this one was very convenient, and iMessage worked. So we can send and receive iMessages without having to log into that Wi-Fi and use our minutes. So throughout the cruise, that was really, really nice for specifically Norwegian, because I could text my mom, see how Roxy was doing. I could text our friend who was staying here with the cats if she had any questions about the house. Didn't have to log in, and I could get notifications if she needed something. I would get it and I would be able to answer her. So that was really useful for that. Con is obviously the fact that you don't just have it. You have to pay for it, or it's like, and it's not great quality.
It was slow. And again, you could spend more money to get higher speeds. But
it's a lot of money.
It's a lot. Like, if we could have done the whole package with high speed, but it would have cost us like an extra $300 to $400 each.
And trust us, it was better to go to the spa than have Wi-Fi. Like, we were fine with the Wi-Fi that we had, or no Wi-Fi. Because again, it's like that's why we went to Belize mainland to bid at a restaurant, because the Wi-Fi is so limited on board. It's so slow. Like, it's not like, we didn't want to rely on that to bid for our schedules. So that's why we just wanted to get a restaurant, grab some food, grab Wi-Fi, and bid that way. So just to clarify that's why we did that. I think worst case scenario, we could have done it on board, but then it could have taken us a long time just because it was so slow. So I don't know how many minutes we would have had to use to bid properly. So we did it the best way that we could. And it's just also nice to disconnect.
It was sufficient for us.
And we had pre-downloaded some things on, like, I had downloaded some podcasts, some like Netflix shows that I just watched as I was working out or whatever. But mostly we read a lot, which was nice. Like, you finished your book. I finished a book and started another one. So it was just nice to get some reading done and just relax. And I love to read, but honestly, when I'm on my phone, sometimes I just scroll through TikTok instead. We all do that, I'm sure. So
we're all guilty of that. All right. So I think that pretty much covers our pros and cons.
I think I didn't quite elaborate just on, like, you're not traveling much. So you're going on a cruise. We can see, we've been to Panama, we've been to Colombia, we've seen a lot of things, but we don't get fully immersed in those places, and we're only there a few hours. So it's kind of like having a quick layover when you're a flight attendant somewhere. You get to see a little bit, but really not much.
And then you're gone. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like you said, you get a taste of somewhere, and then you see, would I come back? But you're not fully getting immersed in those places. And depending on how the ports are set up, what excursions you've booked. In Panama, we were very lucky that we booked an excursion there, because if not, we would not have been able to see anything in Panama, just the way it was all set up, when you went through the locks, we got off for excursion, and when other people were able to get off.
And so if you weren't doing an excursion, you were stuck on the boat, and then you would come back through the locks, and then the boat docked. But at that point, it was dark already.
And it was I think it was like 6:30 p.m. and we were supposed to leave at 8 p.m. from Panama.
So we were lining up to get back on the ship. And at the same time, some people came off the ship, but they literally had like less than an hour. All of the shops in that little area were closed. There was a couple restaurants open, but there wasn't much to see. So if we hadn't done an excursion, we would have been like, okay, this is Gatun Lake. That's it. So I'm really happy we did an excursion there.
Yeah. So it's like, it was a lot different from our cruise in the west coast of Mexico that we did 2 years ago, because I feel like all those ports we were able to kind of explore when we got off the boat. But this was very different this time. Like where we all ended up, it was all like either you're far away from anything, or you can't really see much, or you're a very, very touristy spot like Belize and Mexico.
Those tourist traps, yeah.
So you just have to keep that in mind. Obviously, you can do your research and stuff, and we somewhat did, but at the same time, we know that we're limited on time. Like, you're not going to book an excursion separate from the cruise that's going to take you away for 8 hours. So just like keep that in mind. You get a taste of certain spots, and obviously different cruises are going to be different as well, depending on where you go. If you go to Europe, if you go to Alaska, wherever you go. But just, yeah, you don't travel much. You see a little bit, and then you leave again. So the cruise part is you're on the ship and you get a taste of different places, but you don't get a full meal, if you will, if that's a good analogy. You get a quick little bite, but not a full meal. If you want a full meal, you have to go back and actually go there on your own time.
So for you, from Norwegian to Princess, what did you think? What differences did you notice? Now, again, Princess, when we went on that one, it was at the tail end of COVID. So it was only 30 to 35% full. This one was 100% full. There was not an empty room.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So that being said, I mean, pros of being on Princess was the amount of people.
Yeah.
The ship was bigger on Princess. Just gotta picture myself walking across the whole ship on Princess would take us a while. And on Norwegian, it would just like,
yeah.
The thing I criticize a lot at Norwegian was their entertainment options in the room. By that is, on Princess, you had a TV in the room and you had on-demand content. So
TV
they had
shows, movies. It was like a Netflix, but like in-house Netflix type thing.
Yeah, like IFE on a plane. You had preloaded TV shows and movies that we could start whenever we wanted. We knew what it was. We watched a lot of Modern Family, I think. Which,
and How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah, so that was nice. Like, obviously not an unlimited amount of content, but we had like options, and we could start it whenever we wanted. On Norwegian, it was literally like 4 regular channels, like there was Fox, MSNBC, things like that.
Yeah.
2 movie channels that were just playing random movies throughout the day. Yeah. But like they were just playing. So if you turn on the TV and a movie that you recognize is playing, maybe you'll watch it a bit, but like you never really knew when they were starting or not. So it's kind of like, am I catching a movie like that I could watch? Like, so like that was a big like, okay, Princess had the upper hand there for sure.
Yeah.
But if you don't need that, like you could have your own entertainment. We ended up just watching a bunch of Shark Tank because it ended up being what was playing on TV
at night,
every night.
Yeah. And we love Shark Tank, so yeah.
Overall, I mean, the free at sea is definitely a plus for Norwegian. We didn't mention there's no dress code on Norwegian either, which means that when you go to dinner, you don't have to there's no fancy nights.
Yeah.
But we still saw a lot of people dressed very, very nicely. We didn't really see anybody really dressed like scrubs. Maybe like just some t-shirts instead of like a nice button-down suit, if you will. But because I think it's an older clientele, like they're not dressed like homeless people. They're dressed maybe like casual or like a bit fancier, like not like really bad. Mm-hmm. So that was fine. Like we never felt pressure to dress one way or another, which was nice. No pressure to know when, we have to dine at this time.
Yeah.
We decided every day, what should we go eat? Oh, let's eat at this time. Pretty much when we're hungry, which is really nice. Mm-hmm. We don't have to schedule anything, which on vacation, I don't want to schedule anything.
No, you want to kind of do things at your own pace. Absolutely. Now for me, I've also cruised with Carnival. My first ever cruise was on Carnival, and it was fine if I didn't have anything else to compare it to. After that, I did several cruises with Celebrity. Now it's been over a decade, so things may have changed, but Celebrity was always my favorite. Just the food options. Like I remember going to the main dining room, and in a week-long cruise, you would have one night where there would be lobster tail. You'd have one night where you'd have like filet mignon or like a good steak. You'd have one night with like beef Wellingtons and things like that. So the food on Celebrity, from what I remember, was incredible. A step up from what we've had. It wasn't bad on Norwegian. The first day it wasn't amazing, but then it got better as the days went on. And then we did one night at a specialty restaurant, which was amazing. Would you cruise again?
I would cruise again.
I would cruise again,
I really want to see what the hype is with Celebrity because you've been hyping it up.
And we just found out because we were doing some research, because as soon as you get back from a cruise, you're like,
Let's
all right,
look at other
let's look at other
cruises.
cruises and see prices and this and that. And we found out that on celebrity cruises, big selling point for Adele, big selling point. What do they have?
They have Pelotons.
So, and she literally said to me, like, I would go on celebrity just for the Peloton. So,
But it's just like, I will hype up Peloton till the day that they do something really bad, or I don't know. But I just love the workout. It's so convenient. And it's just like me bumbling around in the gym and doing random stuff doesn't get me a full workout. If I'm following a trainer on my Peloton, I get a way better workout. So if I know that they have that on the ship, it just gives me that extra motivation. And then I won't feel as bad about having like 5 cocktails later in the day.
yeah, true. Excellent. So hopefully if we do book another cruise, it might be on celebrity and we can give you all the information on that one. But
not anytime soon, though.
No time soon. No. We won't have vacation for several months at least. But if you are out there and you are flying or traveling or cruising or whatever, be nice to your flight attendants.
Because they might have to save your butt one day.
Thanks, everybody, for listening.
Goodbye.
Bye now.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate and review wherever you listen to podcasts. We have new episodes every Wednesday. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Moderate Turbulence on Instagram, at Mod Turbulence on Twitter, and follow us individually on Instagram at HuffyJ and at La Delvie. Thank you.